Ariel Helwani uploaded a very good video talking about the UFC Apex cards and why they aren't good for the sport. And today, I wanted to react to it today. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's watch this together because Ariel Helwani, I thought, broke this down very nicely. It is a 22-minute long video. I listened to the whole thing. It was great. I suggest you guys do too, but I'm only going to be breaking down the part where Ariel was talking about this. Thank you so much for being here, guys. Let's get into the video.
Wanted to put this past weekend to bed, and in the midst of that card on Saturday, like I said, entertaining fights, entertaining results, certainly a lot of finishes, stoppages, submissions, etc.
And a lot of people have been talking about, and when you have a card that's as good as the last card, I know not like on paper, the card obviously isn't good, but I'm one of those weirdos who really enjoys it no matter what. It's just like the name value and the ranking. It just elevates my excitement for the card. A lot of people have been really talking about this past weekend. At the time of recording this, it's March 19th. So the card that took place right before this, the one before UFC London, a lot of people have been talking about the UFC Apex and how we need to get out of that because there's a lot of great finishes that would have been so much more viral.
The UFC admin was feeling itself because they tweeted this, which got everyone in a tizzy. Fight nights at the Apex are so boring. Make that 9 finishes on the night at UFC Vegas 104. Side note, I hate the fact that we call it UFC Vegas 104. There have been way more than 104 events in Vegas, way more than 104 events at the Apex.
For that, I personally don't mind, but the UFC's kind of right, and they were saying, like, fight nights at the Apex are so boring, but the problem is, the cards and the fights can be great, but it's just so much better when it's not in the Apex. And the fact that they are acknowledging that, it's a little shocking to me that they're not sitting down and thinking, hey, maybe the fans don't like the Apex cards if the UFC account is actually ending up tweeting something like that.
Way more than 104 fight nights in Las Vegas, but nevertheless, that's just a weird thing that I get hung up on. This was great. You know, to the 26-year-old who's running the account, God bless. I'm sure everyone loved it. I'm sure the bosses loved it. But it was, you know...
It's always those little digs, eh? It's always those little digs. And it's important to know, Ariel does bring up some, like, really nice points over here. And I typically don't, like, always agree with what Ariel Helwani says. Just listen to it. We'll react to it today.
It was pretty off the mark from what we've been talking about regarding the Apex, and I'd like to think that they know that. No one has ever said that the fights at the Apex are boring. No one has ever said that in a vacuum, the fights at the Apex are bad fights. These are...
I don't know. There's a lot of people, like my dad, for example. My dad and I watch pretty well every single card together. My dad hates the fight nights at the Apex. He just doesn't get excited for them. Yeah, you know what? You see some good performances here and there, but I don't know if he would watch it, but no, he's a pretty big UFC fan, so I think he probably would watch it. But the problem is, like, there are a lot of people, and I know people in my personal life, I just use, like, my dad as one example, but there's a lot of people who just really don't care for the Apex cards and don't like the fact that they kind of, like, feel like a sparring match sometimes. So I would disagree with that.
Are UFC fights. They're not quite UFC caliber like what UFC caliber once meant back in, 2010, 2011, when you had to have a certain amount of fights and there was a certain sort of like, there was a process to get into the UFC. Now you can have just a couple and get into the UFC. So no one ever shits on the fights or the fighters. When we talk about the events, feeling soulless, feeling empty, lacking buzz, lacking...
What Ariel's saying is true, except there's a ton of people, and it's not hard to look that up. There's a ton of people always talking about and talking trash about the fighters, talking crap about the quality of fighters in the card. And people, like, there are a lot of casual fans, which is important to take a look at the casual opinion because they are the majority. There's a lot of casual opinion people who just look at the name. They don't see a name value. They see an Apex card and they go, you know what, garbage card, garbage fighters.
Excitement, all these things and more. We're talking about the event itself. We're talking about the venue itself. We're talking about the production. We're talking about how it comes across on television. And to ignore that or to deflect is disingenuous.
And I agree with that. I agree with that. It's crazy that the UFC acknowledged something like that and just go, yeah, no, these fights are great. Deal with them. Like, at the end of the day, yeah, I guess we are going to have to deal with them, but it's just shocking to me that the UFC kind of acknowledged that.
Because they know exactly what we're talking about. And it's getting harder and harder to switch around. You're watching, on Saturday, I'm watching whether it's NCAA, conference tournaments or other sports, NBA, whatever, and then you switch to this, and it still feels like it's 2020, and we keep talking about this. We keep going on and on about this.
And yeah, in 2020, it was necessary to have the Apex, and the Apex was a phenomenal thing. It saved a lot of jobs. It saved the UFC. We could still have weekly cards for the most part. The Apex was necessary back then, and it was, honestly, the first couple times, it was cool. But then, of course, it just does not stack up to crowded events where the UFC, like, once shined.
And I can't imagine that the fighters believe that this is the issue. Like, no one is saying that your fights are bad. No one is saying that your fights are boring.
People do say that, but they're incorrect in saying that. I'm just saying that that conversation does take place.
It's the production. And here I see Mr. Renato Moicano say on his YouTube channel, and I saw this courtesy of MMA Fighting, there's no dynamic like other fight nights on the road. It's good when it's elsewhere because all the athletes go to a different city and they call TV stations, radio people, and you do a fight night with media day and open workouts, and that makes people excited to watch the fights. But nobody cares when it's the UFC Apex. UFC Apex cards must stop. And again,
I think that's very well said, and I think that honestly, probably somebody like Renato Moicano could have said a lot more than just that, but it's true. Like, it's helpful for all of the fighters too. There's a lot of buildup, and something that the UFC really needs to get back into is the amount of promotion that they used to do. Like, I'm talking, was it pre-2020? Probably, eh? Yeah, they need to work on the promotion. They need to work on getting out of the Apex, and I know that you might be commenting down below and saying, like, well, they are going to get out of the Apex. Supposedly in 2025, at the end of 2025, they're going to have a lot less Apex events. We've been hearing this for so long that I'm not going to believe it until I see it.
Hat tip to MMA Fighting for getting the quote. This is according to Renato Moicano on his YouTube channel, Renato Money Moicano. Look no further than Ignacio Bahamondes and Mauricio Ruffi. Same finish, same kick. One gets talked about as one of the great, knockouts of our time. The other completely forgotten about.
Yeah, and it's a combination between not having the hype up of the crowd, not having that moment of having the big KO, and it's just like, it feels a little weird when you can hear the body slamming to the ground, just hearing like one fighter scream with like just a couple people clapping, the corner perhaps screaming. It's so different from an entire arena erupting, getting on the top of the cage, getting all hyped up, using that to get into a post-fight speech as well. And not only a lot of people, and there's definitely more people tuning in to a crowded event, a lot more people having eyes on Mauricio Ruffi, a lot of people sharing it, it's just so much better.
Completely forgotten about. And who was it? It was Bo Nickel earlier today. You lose the virality. You lose the crowd pop. You lose the reaction. You lose the interview afterwards. You lose the interaction with the crowd, whether it's Brian Battle in Paris or someone being treated like a hero. I love when you hear like Joe Martinez, who's fantastic. He's like, everybody make some noise if you are ready, and there's no one there.
Yeah.
Or when Bisping
you hear a couple like woo, and then you can hear like the one person's partner like, yeah, let's go, Mauricio, woo, like that one voice. It doesn't hit the same.
It's the post-fight interview, and he goes like, everyone give it up for so-and-so, and there's no one there. Like, who are we kidding? Enough is enough. And if we're in an era where the UFC is playing this game where they're going to negotiate through the media and whatnot, and the rubber is going to meet the road with this new deal, I pray to God, because part of the onus has to be on the new broadcast partner.
And here's the question. Do you think that they would do that? Or because, like, let's be real, the UFC is still doing great, right? It's still doing great. It's just not to, like, it's not nearly to the potential it could be. Like, not nearly. So is the new broadcast partner going to force the UFC to do better? I don't know. That's the biggest question. I would love to know what you guys think about that down below, by the way.
New broadcast partner has to say, we don't want this. We don't want this product. We want these exact fights. Give us these exact fights. Put them at the Palms or the Virgin or whatever the venue is called these days.
And we know that the UFC is capable of doing that as well. They are capable of going from city to city to country to country. They're more than capable of doing so. They just... Is it laziness? I actually don't know. Is it laziness? Are they just saving costs? Like, I have no idea what the reason could be.
Hard Rock in front of 2,000 people. Put them in an arena. Do better, because the athletes deserve better. Their teams deserve better. Their families deserve better. They can't even get tickets to some of these events.
I agree.
It is driving me nuts. And
it's frustrating to fans. It's frustrating to fighters. It's frustrating to everybody besides the actual UFC. That's the problem.
What's the craziest part about it? They're not even trying. NXT went to the Apex, and they put on a great show. And it was lively, and it looked cool, and it actually had like some sort of buzz and atmosphere. They're not even trying. And some of you guys, like, I bet you in the chat right now it says, "Oh, look at the casual." Like it's some sort of like point of pride to say like, "Yeah, I suffered through 7 hours of an empty warehouse card with fights that had no atmosphere whatsoever, no."
I understand. I'll pause them there because we can't let it go too long with the reaction video without giving some commentary, okay? I understand that, and I understand, like, but the problem is, I am kind of on both sides in the sense that I personally would really, really, really love the crowded events again, but I also am a giant fan of mixed martial arts, violence, the entertainment throughout it. These fights are still wonderful to me. I am still loving the UFC product, okay? I am a hardcore fan. I love to the point where I love watching the Dagestanis because I am fascinated by the way that they can hold people down. I am probably as hardcore of a martial arts fan as you can get. I love the Apex events. It's just the UFC is not living up to the potential, and they need to get out of the Apex for the vast majority of fans. I will never insult somebody for not caring about an Apex event because, quite frankly, I understand why you wouldn't. It's just like, I get that there's people that do love this, and it's disingenuous from not just Ariel, but there's a lot of people like talking about it in the sense where it's like, oh, you like these Apex cards? Yeah, I bet you love liking Dana White's boots too. It's like, no, I enjoy the product. I enjoy the fights. I enjoy all the fighters. It's just, I could enjoy it more, but I still enjoy the fights every single Saturday. I would much rather have an Apex event than no event at all. That's okay to enjoy, and there are people that do enjoy it. We just acknowledge that, or for the most part, we just acknowledge that it would be better. Like, I'm looking forward to the London card more than I would an Apex card. You know, I hope that you guys understand what I'm talking about. I am not suffering through 7 hours of a card. I am thriving and enjoying myself.
Buzz whatsoever. Sometimes I'll listen to the fights in the car on Sirius XM, and it is unbelievable. You can hear the corners. It sounds like a sparring match at a gym. And it's like this point of pride, like, you're a casual if you don't appreciate that. If you don't see the joy in watching pure martial arts, you're a casual.
But he's honestly, Ariel's right, but it's right on the other side of the coin too. For anybody insulting anybody not liking the Apex, that's incorrect. And for the people insulting the people for liking the Apex, that's incorrect. Like, it's both sides. People can enjoy what they want. It's okay for a hardcore fan to really, really be a hardcore fan and enjoy the fights no matter what. And it's also equally as okay for people to just be disinterested in a sparring match, as Ariel Helwani will call it, because it does have that feel. It does have that feel of just an in-gym sparring match.
Fuck off. This is not the major leagues of MMA. This is not the major leagues of sport. I'm so freaking tired of it. And luckily we don't get it this weekend. We don't get it in Mexico on March 29th. We'll get it a few weeks later with Lerone Murphy and Josh Emmett.
And it seems like they've been doing a little bit better, but I'm still not going to be on the train that they're fixing it because we've heard it way too many times.
But please, God, if I could just ask for one thing as it pertains. I'm done with unions. I'm done with revenue sharing. I'm done with all these things. We've talked about these things until we're blue. They're about to sign a deal worth billions of dollars, and the fighters aren't even going to bat an eye. They're not even going to think twice, as they're getting 0% of that, and all the other athletes are getting 50% of that. I'm over that. We're done with that. Please, for the love of God.
That's actually shocking to hear come out of his mouth. I would imagine that he'd keep talking about it over and over and over again.
MMA gods, TV gods, streaming gods, whoever you may be, please make this come to an end.
Guys, but honestly, like, if you really have that big of a problem with it, if people like Ariel, I understand Ariel because, like, obviously it's his job to talk about MMA, but for the vast majority of casual fans who, like, really, really, really hate the Apex cards, why do you sit down and why do you watch it? If you really don't like watching something, just don't watch it. And if enough people vote, it's like the same saying, like if they were selling something, vote with your wallet. If enough people aren't buying the pay-per-views, they'll adjust, you know? But obviously they're doing okay. If there's not enough people tuning into the Apex events, they will adjust. But everybody sits down and they suffers anyways.
Please, I beg of you, enough already. I never thought it could get worse than the fight nights on FS1 or FS2 that would start at 10 o'clock and finish at 1:30. Do you remember those days? How awful those days were?
What? I missed those days. Those cards were bangers. I forgot that he mentioned that.
Every fight night used to start at 10 p.m. and they would stretch them because they had no other programming to show on Fox, and it would go to 1 or 1:30 a.m.
For me personally, that's not a problem. I'll stay up and watch it no matter what. I had a great time with my family doing so.
Every single one, week after week after week after week. I never thought it could get worse. We're now worse. We're now worse off. This is awful. This is awful. And Dolice and Chidi and Jokuani and all these other guys deserve way better. And if you are a true fan of MMA, you recognize that and you demand better.
Now that's the problem. He had me up until if you were a true MMA fan, you recognize that and you deserve better. No. Like, I agree with the fighters that they deserve better. I recognize that the events would be better, but I can still enjoy my Apex events. I can still enjoy the fights every single weekend. So that's not necessary.
Tired of it. So they thought they were cooking with that tweet. To me, it just looked like they were either like blissfully ignorant or, I don't know, missing the whole point. I don't know what it is. And
here's the thing. Like, and this is the problem with Ariel always like constantly like having jabs at Dana White, jabs at the UFC. When he says something that's actually accurate about that, people are going to take that and they're going to, oh, there you go. Ariel's doing what Ariel does again, just hating on the UFC. But when it comes to this tweet, I do believe that he was correct.
What's the Drake reference? What are we doing? I missed that one. What does that mean? What is
I think
Drake?
that might just like match the.
What is
and
it
this
from?
is where they continue on with the rest of the podcast. And guys, like honestly, I thought the entire thing was a pretty good listen, so I suggest that you guys go check it out as well. I really like the Apex cards. I like them because I'm a fan of martial arts and I'm a fan of fighting. And I'm not saying that anybody who doesn't like it isn't a fan of martial arts. It's just like, I really am that hardcore of a fan, but I would like to see them get out of the Apex. I'd be okay with having like an Apex event once every like 6-8 weeks or something along those lines. That would be a little bit more acceptable, but it does hurt the fighters. It does hurt the product. And hopefully we can just sit down and we can hope that the new brand deal does better. Speaking of that brand deal though, we just talked about the idea of UFC partnering with Netflix. Crazy. Check it out right here, guys. We talk about all of that and take a look at a bunch of replies, get a gauge on how people are feeling about this entire situation. Thank you for being here. Take care, everybody.